Hi, my name is Stephen Thronichek, and I'm with HorrOrigins.com. HorrOrigins is a website where you can find articles, reviews, and interviews. We also run our very own film festival and screenplay competition. Today, I'm talking with Lisa Ovies, the director of Puppet Killer. Thank you for being here, Lisa.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I typically like to start these interviews out with the question of what initially got you into horror. So what initially got you into horror?
It's such a great question. I don't really know, and I hate answering it that way. So I've dissected it a little bit. I think it was the original It.
Aren't you going to say hello?
Back in the day, the old school two-part TV, made-for-TV movie, and that was because I was 13 when it came out, and it was shot in Vancouver, and I'm from Vancouver, and I knew someone who was an extra on it. And it was the first time that I could really grasp that something was shot where I was from. And so I watched it religiously over and over again, trying to figure out how things were made. And I think that was the first time my brain, without being conscious of it, kind of went behind the scenes and really started to figure out, where was it shot? What were the locations? How did they do things? And I think that's it. I think that was the moment that I became obsessed. I'd already loved filmmaking, but with horror. And then a friend introduced me to Sam Raimi. And I actually started the trilogy backwards. He showed me Army of Darkness.
Ramming speed!
And I was like, well, this is brilliant. And everything I love. And if you've seen my movie, she likes ridiculous. So yeah, those would probably be the two moments that I think really spoke to me, very different areas.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what Raimi does with new Doctor Strange, and I really like his last, the Drag Me to Hell. I thought that was great. Love that. Okay. So Puppet Killer exists in a very specific horror subgenre tonally. So what draws you specifically to that kind of horror comedy or so?
Such a great question. If I was smart, I would say nothing and I'd run. Horror comedy as a filmmaker is a really scary world to live in, I think. I can only speak for myself, but I come from comedy. I am trained in comedy. I've been a professional improv artist for 10 years. I teach comedy. I love comedy and I love horror. So I think when I finally got free reign to do something of my own, I've been producing and creating content for other people for a long time as an actress or a producer, casting director, etc. This just naturally happened. And I remember thinking a few times, like, you're crazy. This is ridiculous. This is, we always say we had a 90% fail rate on this film. And I really think we did, because just my opinion, but I think you can really, can I swear on this? You can say no, and I'll try really hard not to.
I would avoid it on this specific one.
Very fair. You can really mess up. I think horror comedy, I think you can get to a space where maybe if it was your intention, it's not a mess up, but it can become a spoof. It can become more of a farce. It can become, something that is very beautiful and Mel Brooksy is great when it's intended to, but a lot of times I think horror comedy tries to do something different. And so, yeah, I knew we were kind of getting in a risk on this one, but it was my one chance to take everything I loved and put it in one movie. And that's why I did it.
Well, I mean, yeah, what better reason is there to put things that you love and what you enjoy in a film? So the film's called Puppet Killer, and it focuses greatly on a killer puppet. He was very funny, very much enjoyed the killer puppet. I wanted to ask about conceptualizing the killer puppet on screen and what motivated its design and its voice and how it got there.
Yeah, so like I said, I was creating other content a lot. So I was around when this idea came, I was a casting director on a horror feature. So that world's really aggressive. And this was a film where women were being stalked and murdered. And so the auditions were just exhausting. And a gentleman named Lou Majub, who plays Curtis in Puppet Killer, was my reader, and he's just a phenomenally talented actor, and we kept shooting it about horror and whatnot. And I was also producing a film called Bedbugs, a musical love story, which is exactly what it sounds like. So there was puppets, and it was a musical, and it was everything, and it was great. But I remember standing on the stairs watching this musical happen with puppets and being like, man, if I was in charge, you know, what would I do if I was in charge? I loved producing. I loved helping create other people's visions, but they weren't mine. And for whatever reason, I guess because I'd been casting this horror, I was like, I would kill everyone with a puppet. And that was it. That night I went home. I thought of the concept of a killer that was obsessed with 1980s horror and who killed in homage to different films and iconic people. And it was a short, and it was a very different film when I thought of it. It was definitely more along the lines of a scary movie versus Scream. And I called Lee and I was like, am I crazy? And he was like, that's actually awesome. And that didn't help because now I had someone who believed in it. And then we just it exploded and Simon was born. And he wasn't always as he looks. He was scary at some points, and he had a trench coat and nails for teeth. And this gentleman, Jack Fox, who was helping me create it, sent me footage of Simon one day. And I was like, oh, that's Simon. And it's Lee's voice. So Lee was there from day one. He plays two characters in the film. He plays Curtis and he's the voice of Simon. And he just came up with this voice. And I was like, well, that's Simon. So that was it. I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't have a better idea, but it was just me being weird.
I mean, that's most filmmaking, I feel like, you know, you're just on set and let's do something weird.
I sometimes wish I had a better answer because it's such a weird movie and everything about it's so weird and it all just came out of my brain. And I'm like, I don't know. I think there's something wrong with me.
Well, I really enjoyed it because there's definitely like a early Peter Jackson kind of Meet the Feebles, Bad Taste feel
Dead
to
Alive.
it. Yeah.
Yes.
So there are some really fun casting choices in this film, entertaining casting choices. And you mentioned that you're a casting director. So I was wondering about like how you came across your troupe of actors and how, you know.
What a polite way of asking that question. Obviously I've been doing interviews about Puppy Killer for a while, and like some people flat out say like your casting was horrible, and I'm like, cool, great, I loved it. I'm so stoked on it. I always knew how I wanted to cast it. Obviously, if we're doing this spoiler free, I won't say more than that, and I appreciate how you asked the question, but I always knew how I wanted to cast it. But I didn't necessarily know who it was. And I was directing a short called I Want to Date You. And Alex Ponovic played opposite me. We were a brother and sister. And it was so ridiculously hilarious. He came in with all these ideas. He just elevated the character. He elevated our relationship. By the end, I'm pretty sure we were an incestuous brother and sister just by the hilarious undertones of this comedy that he was doing. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're hilarious. Like, you're my Jamie. And so I pitched it to him, and Lisa Deroux, who is the lead in that short, plays his girlfriend. And so it was directing them and just going like, you guys are so good at comedy, so unbelievably, surprisingly good. I know Alex is good. No one is surprised, but for him to bring that humility and that just tenderness to a 6'5" frame was just something that was really surprising for me and was such a gift. And then Lisa's so good at improv, so good at comedy. And then the cast, I mean, like I said, with Curtis, he was there from day one, Lee as Curtis. So yeah, I don't know. Again, it was my weird brain. My brain was like, here's what we should do with our characters. And luckily people supported me and trusted me, so.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you got a lot of your actors from just people that you knew and had a lot of fun with. And again, talking about sets, I think that that's really like the best thing you can do. I mean,
Yes.
because, yeah. So I like practical effects in movies. They're great. Of course, you're talking about Evil Dead, talking about all these 80s horror stuff, new films. And I like asking directors about what your recommendations and what your big non-recommendations in working with practical effects on sets are, because it is such a crazy, like a crazy factor thrown into the set environment.
Yeah, that's a great question. This is me trying to think quickly. I would say do it as much as you can. I think just for me personally, I just think it looks better. especially for our genre. I just absolutely love it. I think there's so much do-it-yourself online that you can actually research to build your own blood. I would say if people are looking to do a film, do camera tests on the color of the blood. I mean, it's totally okay if you're doing orange blood. Just know you're doing orange blood. Do you want it to look realistic and whatnot? But there's so many cool things that you can do yourself to build, and you can use like glue and paint it for wounds. And there's so much fun stuff that you can do. But I'd say be mindful of the spread and effect of blood. It goes everywhere and it's really hard to get out. So like drop sheets everywhere, shaving cream is your best friend. It will get it out of a lot of things, but multiple outfits, even when you're low budget, that would be a big one. If you've got kills, multiple outfits. But yeah, I really love practical effects. And I think it's a little bit of a dying craft, and it's something that I think old school horror fans really connect to, maybe even subconsciously when they're watching a film. And to me, it's something that I hope we continue to utilize a lot, because I love it. I'm obsessed. It was Friday the 13th, I think, the very first one that I was watching, and it was the next slit. Spoiler.
Oh yeah, isn't it Kevin Bacon?
It's not Kevin Bacon, the one that I'm thinking of.
Okay,
It's the very first one when she's in the Jeep, but we only see the killer's POV.
I think we better stop.
We don't know who it is yet. She runs through the woods. And then she just gets a neck slit. And I remember watching it and being like, how did they do, like, I couldn't see the seams on the prosthetic, and it just fascinated me. And that's the stuff that has always really excited me about what can you pull off in real time. And then being mindful too, if you're an indie filmmaker, it's a little bit more challenging on the day, but post will cost so much less. And I mean, I did it with a puppet, and it's practical. We had a puppeteer in there. We had the craziest stuff, and some people really did think I was crazy and pushed for me to blue screen some stuff. And I was like, this is so important to me. I want my audience to know we did it, and we pulled it off and made it feel real with Simon the way he was. So it's not always easy, but it feels really good when you pull it off.
That's excellent. That's excellent. You mentioned the spread of blood and outfits, and man, I've been on plenty of like indie sets where it's like there's already blood on the outfit. There's no more outfit.
Yeah.
What are we gonna do?
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes too, depending on your director, I am, like I said, dead alive, I am a big blood fan. I don't know if I've ever said that's too much blood. So I learned very early on that, you know, your practicals can maybe think that they know how far it's going to go. You can all guesstimate. Like, I have a woman who passes in my film, and when we were shooting it, she was like, I've got a callback today. Do you think I'll make it? And I was like, yeah, girl, I'll get you out in time. Don't worry. It's not that we didn't have her out in time. It's that she had to have a head to toe shower. Because I just didn't realize. I just didn't. And I was like,
yeah.
I looked at her at one point, I was like, are we good? Because I'm loving this, but this is not what we talked about. Like, I'm so sorry. And she was such a trooper. She was like, let's go. And so, yeah, she just was, I remember seeing her like get carted off with some PAs just to head to toe. And I was like, I'm sorry, but it looked really good. And it does.
That's a really fun on-set story, which actually brings me on to my next question. On horror films like this, you know, lower budget horror films especially, there are always great set stories. So if there is a set story specifically that you think is like just the best set story, what would it be?
Oh gosh, you know, I have to say, we filmed this 5 years ago.
Okay.
And I don't have the world's greatest memory. So I feel bad that I don't have a million. Like, every day was such a challenge and so crazy, but one that like always, I don't know if it's the best set story. I actually feel bad about it, but one that sticks out for me is there was this beautiful clawfoot tub in the house that we were filming in. And all of a sudden I was like, we need to rewrite this scene. Like, I can see it. I can see what I want. My writer was amazing. We go to set it up, and in order to pull this off, I was really lucky. I had Maureen Bernstein as a puppet consultant. She did Team America. Like, this woman is so talented. And none of us had any idea what we were doing. We're like, yeah, it's a puppet. How hard can it be? Hard. So we had rehearsed this, we'd done camera rehearsals, but my puppeteer is in a blue suit underneath my actress in a tub. Everything is so meticulously planned out because we don't want to see, she's in a blue suit in case we have to key her out, but we don't have to. We've got it perfectly framed. Simon's doing his thing, and I so stupidly run in for one final, turn the bathtub on. So now my two people, my beautiful puppeteer and my actress, are in a tub filling up with water. We're perfectly set up. We're super running out of time. We're always running out of time because it's an indie film. And I just like, I felt so horrible. And they both were such troopers. They were like, it's cool, let's keep filming. So that scene you see, they're soaking. And you can't tell. They're just amazing. They nailed it. And then something ended up happening and we had to reshoot the scene again. Like 5 days, weeks later. And I was like, we didn't even need to put them through that. Oh, but honestly, everything we did was so challenging and really hard to plan ahead of time. And every single human was such a good sport. And I mean, that was real snow. Like Lee Majub, when he passes in the film, he's out there laying in the snow, and they were just such troopers. I have so much love for every one of those actors that just gave so much. So
yeah, I mean, especially whenever you start working with elements on set, snow, water, how are actors going to do this? It's always provides like the best
fun
thing.
Story about our snow. So Puppet Killer takes place over 48 hours. As in, we are trying to create a world where everything's happening at the same time. We didn't get snow until the 5th day.
Oh.
We had already established there was no snow. We had already shot. We were not meant to have snow. And I was driving to set the 5th day, and I got a call from someone freaking out. And they're like, the house is covered in snow. Everything's covered in snow. And I was like, well, it can't be. It's like, it can't be. And so now it takes place in this. That was stressful. We had to do some reshoots. We had to CG in some snow. That wasn't cheap. But you know what? It looks so much better with the snow, and I love it.
So, Puppet Killer, you mentioned a love of 80s horror films. That whenever you said, oh, like something that immediately draws you to the project is this love of 80s horror films. And in Puppet Killer, there's about a little bit of discussion of how the horror fan relates to horror films. And I actually wanted to ask you about, how do you personally feel, like, if you have anything you want to say personally about how horror fans relate to horror films in general. Yeah, that's pretty much that. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I sometimes have a weird sense of responsibility where I'm like, I hope I'm not negatively impacting anyone by making these films. But I think horror is very cathartic for a lot of people. I think it's a safe place to have feelings and to have heightened reaction and to kind of work through some stuff. I think for women specifically, it could be a really long feminist conversation about the feelings of being helpless. I'm actually reading a really great book right now called Men, Women, and Chainsaws about actually how a lot of men can maybe subconsciously relate to the victim in these films, and that helplessness feeling. So I think there's something unbelievably cathartic and therapeutic about horror in some capacity, maybe subconsciously. I think there's also a safe space to just, the same reason people like dramas or period pieces, it's to go away somewhere else. I think there's a sense of control for some people that don't feel that they have control. So I think there's a beautiful thing in a lot of things. And then, some people are a little bit crazy and hopefully I'm not feeding to that. But yeah, I've always loved whatever journey film takes me on. Even if it's a film I didn't love, it took me somewhere and it did something to me, and it evoked a new emotion in me or started a talking point for me. So I love film, and for whatever reason, I love horror.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you on all of that whenever it comes to horror. I think it is, cathartic is definitely the word for it. And definitely that space to experience these very intense emotions kind of in a controlled environment.
Well, and especially I think in a world today where, you know, a lot of people aren't analyzing this way, and I don't want them to. I want them to do it because it's a safe thing. But we are in such a heightened sense of trauma as a society, and a lot of us aren't taught how to express and work through it. So maybe it's not conscious, but I think it is a safe way to go through some things that you've got to go through.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Getting a little heavy on you.
Oh man, no, I'm just like, wow. I mean, I've talked to a lot of horror filmmakers, and none of them have nailed exactly my own opinion on how horror movies relate to people, and that's exactly it.
You know what? It's funny because I've been asked that question a lot, and I'm not gonna lie, that was the best way I've ever explained it. I was like, "You finally nailed it, girl."
So I like to typically end these interviews by asking if there's one horror movie, just right off the top of your head, don't even think about it. Just what would you recommend to people? Go.
Like a new one, something right now?
Anything, just anything.
I think right now I would tell you to go watch Vicious Fun.
Okay.
It's fun.
Okay. I haven't seen that.
I don't know where you would find it. I think it's just come out. We played with them at Panic Fest. I just had another film called Witches Midnight that did a world premiere at Panic Fest, and Vicious Fun was a feature film that don't know anything about it. I don't know who directed it. I don't know who I'm supporting, but it was so fun. It was so well done. It was well acted. I think it's probably a lower budget, but not super low budget. It didn't feel that way. And it was a ton of fun, and it was a film I think horror fans would love right now. Vicious Fun, wherever you find it. I don't know where you find it.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I'm glad that we got like a recommendation for something for people to anticipate. That doesn't happen quite often.
I think it might have just come out.
Okay,
but whenever I recommend anything, I like recommending something new and something, you know, maybe by a horror fan or a horror maker that not everyone knows. That one in Scare Package. Y'all need to be watching Scare Package. It's an anthology that pays homage to 1980s horror in a very good way.
Excellent, excellent. All right. Well, that's all my questions at the moment. Lisa, where can people find you at the moment? Just social media or anything like that?
I am attempting to be better at social media. I'm old, but we're working on it. So I have a Facebook page that's just my name, Lisa Ovies. Puppet Killer has one as well on Instagram. It's my name, Puppet Killer the movie, and then I think we both have Twitter as well. But can't say we do the Twitter too much. But yeah, usually it's my name, Lisa Ovies, Ovies, on the social medias.
All right, excellent. I've been Stephen Tronicek. You can find me on Twitter at STRONICEK. And this has been for HorrOrigins.com. And just as a reminder, HorrOrigins is a website where you can find articles, reviews, and interviews. We also run a film festival and a screenplay competition. Thank you so much for being here, for talking with me and being here. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.